About Time Conversations with Charlize and Yolanda, where we bring our experiences and our expertise to the table to address relevant topics that impact our lives and our communities. This is the place to be authentic, to be transparent, and to be inspired. We are really excited about our podcast on tonight. So, welcome to our virtual table, and I am Charlize Lewis.
And I am Yolanda Mason. And of course, you all know it is Women's History Month. Let's give it up for Women's History Month. And so in honor of that, today our show is going to be centering just on celebrating women. And that includes women's contributions and also positive portrayals of women, particularly as it concerns media. So we have with us the perfect guest to help us kind of talk about this and have a conversation. It is Debora Logan Lawson, who is the founder of the Lextropolis Magazine and a radio personality. And while I'm at introducing her, I want to say congratulations, Miss Debora, for your recognition as being one of our community's outstanding women of excellence, which was hosted by Guide Realty Miss Raquel Carter.
Thank you. Thank you. That was quite an honor. I was really surprised, actually.
Isn't that awesome? I love to see us celebrate us. So that's amazing.
Yeah, so welcome to our virtual table. So we're just going to get into the discussion. And so, Debora, all I'm going to say is this. Tell us the who, what, why, when, and where of the Lextropolis Magazine. Let's start there.
Well, we are actually getting ready to celebrate 6 years in October of this year. So I know when we started this, I had no idea where we were going for real. It just kind of happened. I had just pretty much semi-retired from the police department through their PAL division, working with kids for over 22 years. And I thought I was going to come home and sit down, right, and enjoy my family, but that didn't happen. It was actually the first time I had a chance to sit back and watch television. And in doing so, I didn't like how our communities were being portrayed. And after working with kids, trying to, show them positive paths to take, I realized that a lot of them would go home and, they had no role models. They had no one. And if that's all they had to do was watch on television what they were seeing, the same thing I was seeing, they had no chance. So that was kind of what motivated me to do this, because I wanted them to see people that look like them doing positive things.
Good.
Thank you so much for that. You had a special edition that just dropped yesterday. So talk a little bit about that.
Yes, ma'am. Well, first of all, congratulations to you, because you were one of the phenomenal women that we spotlighted. Several months ago, Lisa had come to me and we talked about it. It was something I wanted to do before, because another local magazine had spotlighted business women in their magazine, but there was barely anyone of color. And you know as well as I know that there's plenty of African-American women out here doing great things. And so I wanted to do it over a year ago, but I didn't have someone to write those stories. I'm only one person and I can't do it all. And so when she brought it up to me, I was like, yes, let's do it. And so that's what we did. So we had a nomination process and people were nominated and we filtered through the nominations and did what we did. So
yeah, it was beautiful. It was beautiful. So you said something. You said you can't do it all by yourself. So talk a little bit about how your team developed.
Oh, wow. Started out with, I think, maybe 5 or 6 of us. The initial persons was myself and a friend of mine, Patrick Mitchell. He and I, we were very good friends, and he knew he had this photo, I'm getting confused there, but he had this photo that was of the city of Lexington, and it just did something to my spirit. And I kept telling him, I said, we got to do something with this. He thought I was crazy, but sometimes things get to you, that you just feel like you got to do something. I don't know if it's a higher being, I don't know what it was, but I knew I needed to do something. And I did not want to do a newspaper because find the news anywhere. You can turn to any channel or anywhere and find the news. And besides, we already had an African American newspaper here in Lexington, so I wasn't trying to be in any competition with anyone. I just wanted to do something unique and something that would highlight our communities. And so we fooled around with the name and we came up with the Lextropolis. You know, mini metropolis Lexington is, you know, it's not as huge as some of the largest cities, but we're right there in the midst of, you know, the other cities. And so with that being said, we sit down at the table at my little office, and there was Joy Bolton-Berry, and again, Patrick Mitchell, and Joyce Johnson, and one other person, I can't remember right now what his name is, but we sat at my table and we told them what we had, you know, what we wanted to do, and they thought it was great, and so we took it from there and started. That was like in March or April of 2015. So we didn't actually put out the first magazine until October of that same year. But it took time. You know, we had to pull together some more staff members and find people that we needed to talk to.
Well, I think it's wonderful, and even the way the media has changed. Most people don't know I'm actually a trained journalist. I went to the Ohio State University, and so my area was investigative journalism. And I think about back then how everything was, it feels like so prehistoric and dinosaurish. When I think back to 1998, email was just now really getting to where it was widely used. We had papers in our hand all the time, so the internet was not really hosting as much content. And so now everybody is trying to do something on the internet that they think is journalism, but it's not actually journalism. A lot of times it's just sensationalism and gossip, and it's not done well. So I really wanted to say I love the Lextropolis because it's done well. It's done well.
Oh, wow.
You know,
That means a lot. That means a lot to me coming from you. I don't pretend to be a journalist. I write from my heart. I try not to write too often because I know I make many mistakes as far as, you know, as far as with you being a journalism major. But there's some stories that need to be told. And when I don't have anyone to write those stories, I take on that task. And believe me, I have 2 or 3, 4 people to read it after me and edit it and make sure it does at least sound halfway decent. But I do try to surround myself with individuals who are, you know, journalists or much better writers than I am.
But that's the point, right? That's the point. You got to add people to the team who have those skills. You can't have all those skills. You know,
exactly.
As women, we are expected to do a lot. But I appreciate the fact that you have extended, you know, you've got a tree and then you've got branches, and you've extended, you know, those branches out to people, first of all, who had the heart and had the passion to tell us the stories, because that's really where it starts, having the heart and the passion to tell the stories, but then to do it with excellence. So that's what I appreciate the most about the Lextropolis. So I want to switch gears just a smidge and talk about your radio show. You have, what is it? Conversations at the Table, right?
Conversations around the table.
Around the table. Okay.
Yes.
So talk about that and what happened. How did that start, and what was the need that you saw to have that show?
Actually, I kind of just fell into that position. Joy Bolton-Berry, she had a radio show. I can't remember what it was called at that particular time, but I would always show up, take pictures, be a part of the, you know, the surround the table type thing. Was basically focused on women, and I would always show up just to support her. And then she decided she was ready to leave radio, and then Debbie Coles came on as the lead host. And again, I was just there because it was her and Dale Morgan and Angela Allen Johnson. And so I'm friends with all 3 of those. And so I would, again, hang around or be there occasionally, fill in for Angela or fill in for someone who couldn't be there. So it would always be 3 people at the table. And so then Debbie left, and then I wound up being one of the hosts on that particular show. But I love the radio show because we talk about all topics. We're not just closeted into one subject, like, you know, a lot of radio shows are about just, you know, marriage or business or singlehood or whatever. We talk about it all, you know, everything that's happening in our communities with COVID, and, you know, just everything, and try to give them answers, or at least make them think. Because since we have been in this pandemic, that's been the whole conversation mostly, you know, trying to get African Americans to get the vaccine. And we have partnerships with the health department and various other organizations where we've been putting out correct information. So that's been fulfilling for me.
And I love that you said that, because one of the rules of journalism is to report the truth, the facts, and to be accurate. So when you're thinking about those things, those are actually the rules, the elements of journalism. You know, and people, a lot of times, because again, technology is out there, people don't go by what the rules are because there's a science to it. And so I appreciate you saying that. That just made something in me just leap a little bit.
Well, not only on the radio, but as far as the Lextropolis as well. Just because you call me and say, hey, I got a story, you know, blah, blah, blah. Well, I've got to do some kind of research to be sure that story is true, you know, because there's always three sides to a story. It's your side, their side, and the truth.
And the truth.
So, yes. So we try to go after the truth. Yes.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, I can't help but say before I get into my part of the question, it's interesting that we're having this conversation, because I think the relevancy of truth in media is more so after kind of the Trump era that we experienced. Whatever you think about his politics, that's not important, but just this idea of fake news that existed in that bubble of those 4 years, and thinking about how many things were reported in the media that were not true. And then also thinking about things that were left out of the media, especially pertaining to our community, the African American community and other communities of color, because we did not have those people who would elevate our voices. And so I think that adds even more relevance to what you said about just that, you know, like you said, I'm not just going to take a story and run, I'm going to do my due diligence, I'm going to do my research. And I think that's very important. But also in thinking about the importance of what you do, Miss Debora, I'm thinking about what we talked about in terms of, and I guess I could go back to what you said about what initially brought you into this business. What initially sparked your interest in the Lextropolis was you retired, you went home, you started to look at a lot of TV, and I heard you say that you just did not like the way we were being portrayed. And I'm assuming that you mean women of color, Black women, people of color, because I share those sentiments when I think about some of the very salacious reality shows and those kinds of things that attempt to portray Black women, particularly in a particular light. It's something that I spend a lot of time thinking about. And so I think that kind of led us to this part of the conversation that I think is so important. What do you think, what can you tell us about the importance of our voices? And when I say our, I mean women of color, when it comes to telling our story, our truths, and our news. How important is it for Black women and other people of color, other women of color, to be poised to tell our own stories?
Well, actually, Yolanda, I think it's very important. I'm a little older than probably both of you, and I come from a time when women spoke only when spoken to, you know. I watched my grandparents, you know, be in that situation. My mom was very vocal, so she had her own mind and her own energy and her own independence, and I think that's where I get that. And my father also, he never wanted me to depend on the male for, you know, changing tires, and no disrespect to the man himself, but he just wanted me to be able to take care of myself with or without one. But our voices have been quiet for so long. You know, a lot of our stories are not told, and they deserve to be told, just like the stories of Katherine Johnson, you know, who was a part of Nassau. And those stories are just coming out in the last few years. And there's so many other stories, that are
Yes.
not told. I have stories in my family, and I'm very family oriented. And I try to make sure my kids know the stories of our family, because I
Mhm.
always taught the kids in the PAL program, if you don't know who you are and where you came from, you don't know where you're going. And
So
I just
true.
think that women are more than just the domestic aspect of our livelihoods. We
Yeah.
are um, business women, we are doctors, we are lawyers, we are doing the thing. And
Yes.
that and I'm happy about that because I've seen, again, over the years, I've seen so many women be behind the male significant other in their lives, and like they never had
Hmm.
a voice. And I wanted to give women a voice. I've
Hmm.
always had a voice. I've always spoke out. I've been kind of shy and timid most of my growing up years through high school and partial of college. But I found my voice after my divorce. It may sound
Hmm.
strange because during the time you married, you somebody's wife, you somebody's mama, you somebody's something, but you
Yeah.
never are really told about who you are because
Hmm.
you're wearing so many different hats, doing so many different things. So I had to reinvent Debora Logan Lawson, and I did that. So
That's awesome. And two, I'm thinking about something that you said that really really caught my attention because I often reference the movie Hidden Figures, and I think about how many Black women in history that I would have known nothing about until movies came out. And I recently, after having looked at the movie Judas and the Black Messiah, I don't know if you were able to see that movie or not, about the life of Black Panther Fred Hampton. But anyway, there were significant women who worked in the Black Power movement that I, at my age, over 40, knew absolutely nothing about. I knew all of the names of the men who were in the Black Power movement. It's something that I studied extensively, but I knew nothing about the significant women until that movie came out. And so I think that those kinds of examples highlight what you're talking about. But there's another something that I think is important in this conversation, and it's interesting because I had this conversation once with a mutual friend of ours, Angela Allen Johnson. We talked about the difference between having a seat at the table and creating your own table, right? So having a seat at the table, and I there are other things that I have in my head when thinking about other media outlets in Lexington, particularly, especially magazines. But I'll refrain from mentioning any other magazines because I don't think it's important. But how important do you think it is, just to kind of go a step further, to have our own, as opposed to having maybe that one available seat at the table of other I guess, media outlets that are not led or created by Black people? Is that important as well? How do you view that?
it's very important. Um, you can sometimes have a seat at the table and still not have a voice.
Hmm,
Um, I
that's a
grew up in a
hashtag.
family that we created our own tables.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I was one of the blessed individuals because my parents taught us, to be respectful, to get out here and hustle and do what we had to do. I watched my dad because he was one of the first Black construction companies here in Lexington. He started his company
Oh,
in 1969, and when he passed, I took over the company in 2003.
wow.
He had pretty much life as a little girl, construction. And so when he passed, we were ready to take over, and we are still doing it today.
Wow.
But he created his own table because a lot of times doors were closed. We're talking about the 60s, a
Hmm.
Black man trying to do painting and drywall and wallpaper and those things back in the day, plastering, because there was still plastering going on. And I watched him open doors opening for him because of the person he was. And he was just a gentle soul. He didn't meet any strangers. He just had a goal of what he wanted to do, and he did very well. So he taught us that. Of course, he wanted us to be educated and And because they can never take that away from you. That's all we ever heard. They can never take your education away from you.
Yes.
And so you do that. And so with all that being said, when I realized that, you know, here in Lexington, there was nothing that was celebrating us, that's kind of where the magazine turned from, even though I still was wanting kids to see that, but it got to be more focused on our communities and what we were doing right and what we were doing as a whole. These other magazines or other entities were not caring about us. You know, they might use one or two just to throw up in there just to say that they are being diversified or diversity in that area when they're really not, you know. And construction is the same way. You know, I'm a Black woman, been in the construction business since, officially since 91.
Wow.
1991. I'm getting ready to retire over 30 years. And I know a lot of doors, especially when my father passed. We were completing a hotel in Georgetown, Kentucky. And I had to go down for a meeting. You know, we have our little meetings in the trailers. And when I walked in there, the gentleman said, "Is that all John Logan can send down here?" Now he was talking about me. And a few of my employees got real upset about it, and they you know, was trying themselves protecting me, and they formed a circle around me. You know, we got this. And I'm talking about Black, white, Mexican, it didn't matter. We had all sorts of races that were working for us, and we were a family. We supported each other. And so I just told them, I got this. You know, I said, I'm good. Y'all go do what you're supposed to do. I got this. And so I went into this meeting, and he wasn't even the head honcho. He was just a peon, you know, that had maybe a couple of the crews. So when we went into the meeting, he didn't know what I was going to say, because I was talking to the head honcho. We were shaking hands and, you know, having a conversation that he couldn't do.
He couldn't have that conversation.
He couldn't have that conversation. So he was turning red and blue and all different sorts of colors, you know. And so after the meeting, I didn't say anything in the meeting because I didn't want to be that person. Right. But what I did do after the meeting, I told him, until I do something wrong, you need not say nothing else to me. You know, because we were almost completely done with that job. I had probably 20, 25 guys working on this project. I knew what I was doing. I wasn't worried. And my dad had left the business in good hands. He trusted me. He knew what I knew. So nobody else could tell me anything.
That's it. That's it. That's a good story too. And we have so many of those stories, whereas women, and particularly as Black women, we have been underestimated. But what I like that you said was your father, he knew his daughter. He knew the daughter that he was leaving this business to. He knew what he had invested in you. And so if he had faith in you, what else is there to be said? That was the bottom line. That was the final line. And that's good. So just in thinking about other women, of course, you have such amazing experience. Like, for instance, I did not know that your father had a construction company that he owned. As you know, as long as I've known of you, and I certainly did not know that you had owned that company for a number of years, which is amazing. But it's making me think about the younger women who may be listening to us, those who may be watching on Facebook or who may watch afterwards, after this, you know, watch the recast of this. Can you tell us what kind of advice you would give to young women of color, just thinking about the incredible journey of your life, how you have established yourself as a businesswoman, an entrepreneur, a voice in Lexington, an influencer. I think all of that is so amazing. And I just wonder what you might say to other young women who are listening, who might want advice, who might have great ideas like you had when you started the Lextropolis. What would you say to them? What would be your advice?
Well, first, let me clear up one thing. When my
Oh, you're muted, Deborah.
Uh-oh.
I'll come in. My brother left his job and he came in also, because there's no way in the world I could do that by myself. So I'm sitting in the office now doing all of doing the paperwork and the contracts and all of that stuff. So he's out in the field. So I had to give him a shout out. And,
absolutely.
I just didn't want anyone to misunderstand, but we're a team. We are a huge team. We work very well together. And this is, you know, the Lextropolis is not my first business. Even outside of, I don't consider the construction company actually my business because I didn't start it, you know. We're just
Family
maintaining.
business.
Yes, we're just
Yeah.
maintaining. But I've had two restaurants prior
Oh, wow.
to the Lextropolis. Yes, we had found another family-owned restaurant. Me and my ex-husband owned a restaurant on 6th Street. And
Mhm.
we had another restaurant because that place caught fire, and we waited a few years and started another restaurant on Georgetown Street.
Mhm.
So I've had my hand dibbling dabbling in businesses for a number of years. But as far as for young people or for other women, you just have to have a dream, you know. You
Yeah.
have to want to do something. You can't just start anything just because so and so is doing it. If you don't have a passion for what you're doing, you pretty much are gonna fail. And you have to learn. You know, if I want to open up a card shop, then I need to know what type of cards is going to be beneficial for the community. You know, and if I'm looking for just my community, then obviously I want African American cards. And you know, you can create your own cards to say what you want them to say. Has been very successful, and I am so proud of it. I'm proud of my team. We have a team of 18 individuals, and getting ready
Awesome.
to add a few more people on team. We have internships that we just opened up from the University of Kentucky, so I'm excited about
Oh,
that getting ready
that's
to
so
happen. But
awesome. I
but
love that. I love to hear that.
yes,
So, it, just to reiterate what you just said, um, so it was your father's business, and it's now a family-run business, you and your brother. And then also,
yes,
so I want to honor your family and the fact, and the fact that I don't want to overlook your brother, the fact that it is a family-owned business, which I think makes it even more special. And I also want to take time to honor the 18 people who are on your staff at the
yes,
Lextropolis. So it sounds like what I love about what you're saying is that you're recognizing your greatness, but also you're taking that moment to make sure that we know that it's not just you, but it's a village. I think about, the African proverb, it takes a village. And it sounds like your village has just done an incredible job, composed of family and friends and community. And so I just say salute to you and to your family, to your father and your wonderful team. You all have done an incredible and exceptional job. And I'm so glad that I know more about what you've done, because it means so much. It makes such a difference. So in thinking about that, where can we find you on social media? I feel like in a way, you're a treasure, you're a jewel that we know some things about. We knew that you were a great businesswoman. We knew that you were a woman with integrity, just an incredible person. I think I've never heard anyone say anything less about you. But where can we find you on social media? Are you on, I know you're on Facebook. Are you on other media, your website? Can you give us a little bit of that before we give it back to Charlize?
Wow, I don't know what to say to all of that you just
It's
said.
amazing. It's
I
amazing.
appreciate it, the kind words that you said.
You're welcome.
Personally, I try not to be on social media, but you can find
Really?
Lex Tropic. People are surprised when they come when they come to my page. I only maybe have like 1,300 friends. I don't like all
Really?
of the hoopla. I
Yeah.
really don't. I rather be behind the scenes. But the
Yeah.
Lextropolis you can find on Facebook.
Awesome.
You can find. I also have a business page, the Lextropolis Magazine, as well.
Okay.
Yes, we're on Twitter as the Lextropolis. We're on Instagram as the Lextropolis.
Love it.
Um, you can find me personally on LinkedIn, but
Okay.
again, I don't try to be too much out there.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, thank you so much, Charlize. We'll throw it back to you.
So I heard something in when you were giving your advice, I heard something else that I want to make sure that all the listeners catch. You may have a great idea, but do you have the passion and the vision for it? But you said something that's so key. Do the research. Do the
Got to.
research. And people don't. If and you have to assess the need. Is there a need for this thing that you think you want? Because what's going to happen, I see a lot of businesses go under after the first year because they didn't assess the need. You have to
Yes.
make sure you have a plan, you create a plan. You have to make sure you know who the experts are in the area so that they can help you do, what it is you're trying to do. But you can have a vision
Yes.
all day long, but you also have to have a plan in order to execute and to hit all of those goals. You have to have a plan. You have to have the right people in place. And you also, again, have to do the research. Is there a need for what you're trying to do?
Absolutely. You have to do a business plan,
Yes,
because while doing that business plan, you're going to have questions like why, why in the demographics that you're in, what makes what you want to do so important. And it starts challenging you to find out more and find out, why am I doing this in Lexington? Is it a need for, is it happening somewhere else close to this? Because you want to make money. You don't want to just do something just for the heck of it. You want it to be able to grow. So at some point in time, it takes a while. You can't get rich in 1 year. You can't get discouraged after 2 years. Sometimes
right.
it takes 5 years. I had this 5-year plan. I told my staff, if we're not doing what I think we should be doing in 5 years, then I'm done, because I was in pocket for a lot of that time. When started paying for itself, and this 5th year last year was phenomenal. It took us to heights I never even dreamed about. It was just something that we wanted to do. I'm sorry.
I just think it was awesome. I just think, that 5th year, it did it, the pandemic year. People keep thinking everything was so horrible in that year, but the pandemic year did a lot for creatives.
Mm, awesome.
It actually did. I think it did. I think it's been a great year for African American businesses as well,
Great.
because
Mhm.
the spotlight was on diversity, inclusion, and all of those things. And anyone who had a business, people were looking for them. I have a Black business directory as well, and it's under construction because I'm having to revamp it. But I had so many people calling me or emailing me wanting to know where to find it. Who, do you know a Black business, a Black florist, a Black this, a Black that? And sometimes it was overwhelming, like I had all the answers, but I
Right.
don't. But it was definitely showed me that there's a need for it.
Right.
That's good. That's
Mhm.
awesome. So we're at the point now, what's called our round robin.
Yay.
We're going to ask you just some general questions, and what comes to mind comes to mind. Just say it. If you don't know, you don't know, because some people are like, oh, I never thought about that, and that's okay too. So, what are you reading right now, or
Okay.
favorite book? The recommendations for reading material. We always touch on this with everyone.
Oh wow. The Lextropolis is all I have to read right now.
That's good. That's a good answer, though. That's a great answer, actually. So in this whole pandemic, I told my husband, I said, I think we have almost every type of movie, TV, streaming, everything. So do you
Yeah.
have a favorite movie that you have watched recently, or something that you can pull back out of the files?
Oh wow. Um well, my sister-in-law had me streaming a particular show she told me I needed to watch, and that was The Affair.
Mm.
Um and I had never seen it. I think it was on Showtime maybe a few years ago, but it actually was really, really good. And every night I was watching an episode or two, trying to watch it within a reasonable amount of time. But I did thoroughly enjoy it. Um, Other than that, I've been watching a lot of Black movies. There's, you can get apps off of the Play Store or whatever, and I've been watching this one station. I can't right now tell you what it was. I'm sorry, but there's so many Black apps out there with showing Black movies, and
Mhm.
some I love plays. I love Black plays, and so whenever I can find those, I try to watch them.
That's good. Thank you for that. So let me ask you this question. Your favorite food or local restaurant, or both, a combination of both.
Lately I've been on a prime rib kick.
Okay.
Mm. Good
I
stuff.
love, yes, but you have to have it blackened. If you've
Oh,
never had it
I've
blackened,
never had it
try it
like
blackened. Yes,
mm.
phenomenal. And my favorite restaurant right now is Rafferty's, and they
is
have a
it?
Mm.
phenomenal prime rib.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay, I'm gonna have to tell my husband that. I'm gonna have to
I'm gonna
tell him
try
that.
that one. That sounds good. I'm gonna have to
It
try
does sound good. It does
it.
sound good. So here's my final round robin question. If you could go back in time and meet someone, who would it be?
Wow. Maybe my great aunt. Again, talking about family. She was a funeral director.
Okay.
Back, actually, I had two aunts. They were sisters. They were funeral directors. One in Somerset, Kentucky, and one in Stamford, Kentucky. And I'm talking 50s and 40s, 1940s, 1950, and you just didn't see that. But there was a lot of Black entrepreneurship in my family, so I think it's kind of been hereditary. What we do now, that it was just meant for us to do this. So
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I like
that's
that because this whole conversation has really, in so many ways, been about legacy.
yes,
Passing the businesses down, and thinking about, how do you draw on the experiences of, your ancestors. I love that type of discussion. We had Divine Karama on here and Dr. Roger Cleveland, and when I asked them this question, it was still so similar. It wasn't a movie star or anyone like that. It was somebody who was attached to their legacy, their bloodline, and their family. And so I really love that you said that. And again, there were businesses. I think when you talk about the 40s, 50s, and 60s, Black people had to create their own stuff.
yes,
Everything was separate.
yes.
But you don't hear
But
the stories.
what's unfortunate, we're kind of going backwards, even today. Here we are in the 2021, and still things are so separate, and it's sad.
strange.
But
It's strange.
it is strange. But for our new upcoming, young individuals who don't know how that feels, who don't know, how to interact with things being separate, individuals like me are used to it, because we had to create our own tables to be successful. Where now, we get our education, we get our degrees, and we expect, which they should, don't get me wrong, but we expect to have a seat at that table when a lot of times you don't. It doesn't matter if you have a PhD anymore.
Right.
You find so many people having to recreate themselves because they've done everything people have asked them to get the education, to get the master's, to get everything, and then they still cannot walk in that door and have the same opportunities as their counterparts. And it's really sad.
I think that's powerful, Miss Deborah, because I'm thinking about it as I edge up to my master's degree. I graduate, I think it's May the 13th now. It's just a few weeks away. And that has been, I just cannot believe how you just brought that up, because that has been the conversation behind everything. I was talking to my mother about it and my sister, how I realized that a part of my wanting to go back to school, obviously as an older adult, a non-traditional student, was that, again, my father always told me, if you have your education, they cannot take that away from you. And that resonated with me when you said that. However, as I get closer to my master's and I'm talking to my colleagues who are also finishing grad school about opportunities, I'm finding out that maybe that adage that my grandmother always said, she always said that we have to work twice as hard to get half as far. I'm thinking, I guess I was shocked. I was like, Mother, could that still be true? And she's like, Yolanda, wake up. She was like, it's still, I guess I had a lot of hope for it. Once I graduated, I specifically went to UK thinking, this is the thing, this is the network, these are the connections, and not complaining at all. I'm excited about the opportunities that lie ahead, but I'm still seeing these kind of distances between myself and my white counterparts who have the same degree, have the same education at the same University of Kentucky, and yet things are still different. And so it's interesting that you bring that up, because that's been something I've been dealing with as I move towards graduation.
Yeah, and if you really do the research, it'll show you that
it seems like it's never enough.
Yeah, you're right. It does feel like it. And African American women are the highest
graduated, yes,
that earn degrees, period, and also
masters, bachelors, and PhDs, yes,
and actually still the lowest paid.
Absolutely.
Says it, the research supports it. It's there and it's in numbers. I mean,
yes.
So why not create your own tables where you can feel worthy in what you're doing, instead of worrying about somebody else making you feel worthy? Does that make sense?
Yes,
it does.
because
It's
you
my
know
goal.
yeah, and you know your worth. You know what you want to do. You obviously have passion to be receiving your master's or your PhD. So you have to sometimes take it to another level. When you see that those doors are not opening for you, then you find another avenue to open the door for yourself.
That's it. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. But that's kind of what we did even with this podcast. I mean,
Absolutely.
there was just some things that we felt like we needed to say, we wanted to address, and people we wanted to talk to and engage with. So that's just what we did. I mean, and the resources are out there to do it. It's all about, do you have the passion, the drive, or do you just want it badly enough? You know, that's a lot of it. How bad do you really want it? So
Or you just want the what is it, the Hollywood status.
There you go, the clout.
Yeah, the clout.
No, that's so true. You have to decide. You
you do.
Well, they could have the cloud. I don't like to. I go in the grocery store now, and somebody was, even with my mask on, they'll say, I know you. And I was like, my first reaction is, are you from Lexington? And it's like, yeah. So did you go to Brand Station? Because I am a Brand Station alum. And, and that's like, no, that's not where I went to school. And I'm like, well, I'm not sure. Or either side, they know my brothers or something, but then after I go through all of that, I said, no, you're that lady that has the Lextropolis.
Isn't that funny?
It is. That's the last thing I even think about, because I have a brother that played pro ball for a number of years, and usually I'm his sister,
Yeah.
But we laugh about the roles being changed.
Isn't that funny? Interesting.
All right, Yolanda.
Well, y'all, I'm sorry we were having such a good conversation. I forgot it's time for us to get out of here. First of all, I just want to thank you again, Miss Debora, for being here, and thank you for your insight. This has been a great conversation in light of Women's History Month. And I just want to thank all of you who are listening and who are watching on Facebook and who will listen later for joining us today as we continue to shape dialogue around real life issues and real talk solutions. Please like and follow our social media pages on Facebook and YouTube, and our podcasts on Anchor and Podcast Player. Join us next time as we strive to be authentic, be transparent, and be inspired. Thank you all so much for joining us.